Have you ever crossed paths with a narcissistic woman? This encounter can take place anywhere, at work, in relationships, or social circles. They might be colleagues always seeking attention or friends who are self-centered. They could even be family members who disregard your feelings. Narcissistic women often mask their traits. They use their femininity to deflect blame, display superiority, and demand validation. Their behavior is usually more passive-aggressive than that of narcissistic men, displaying intense jealousy and indulging in one-sided conversations. They may project insecurities onto others, making it challenging to recognize their behavior. However, understanding narcissistic traits can empower you to manage such encounters effectively. It lets you set boundaries, navigate these intricate interactions, and maintain your mental and emotional well-being. Finding a healthy balance is essential, and it doesn't necessarily mean completely cutting them off. The more we understand narcissism, the better prepared are to deal with it. Recognizing these traits could indeed be a game-changer in managing your interactions and maintaining your peace. Now let's delve into the 13 traits of narcissistic women. The first trait of a narcissistic woman is a lack of empathy. This is not just occasional indifference, but a consistent inability to understand or share the feelings of others. It's as though they are watching the world through a one-way mirror, focused solely on their own reflection. Playing the victim is the second trait. Narcissistic women are masters of manipulation, often portraying themselves as the victim in situations where they are actually the perpetrator. They use this tactic to garner sympathy and to divert attention away from their own wrongdoings. The third trait is materialism. Narcissistic women tend to place an excessive emphasis on material wealth and physical appearance. They strive to project an image of success and perfection, often at the expense of genuine human connection and personal growth. The fourth trait is a refusal to accept boundaries. This trait can be particularly damaging as it often leads to abusive behavior. A narcissistic woman may persistently ignore or violate your boundaries, regardless of the distress it causes you. The fifth trait is a perverse enjoyment of others' pain. While most of us feel empathy when we see someone in pain, a narcissistic woman may derive satisfaction from it, seeing it as a confirmation of her own superiority. The sixth trait is ruining relationships. Narcissistic women often leave a trail of broken relationships in their wake. Their lack of empathy, respect for boundaries, and constant victim playing can make maintaining a healthy relationship with them nearly impossible. The seventh trait of a narcissistic woman is self-centeredness. This is a conspicuous characteristic where the individual consistently places their needs, desires, and ambitions above others. Their world revolves around them, and they expect others to cater to their whims without a second thought. The eighth trait is a propensity for blaming others. Narcissistic women often refuse to accept responsibility for their actions. They are quick to point fingers, attributing their mistakes and failures to others, creating a shield of blame to protect their fragile self-esteem. Moving on, the ninth characteristic is passive-aggressiveness. This trait manifests as a subtle form of hostility, often concealed under a veneer of sweet words or actions. It's a covert way of expressing dissatisfaction or resentment without direct confrontation. Next, we have the 10th trait, which is a sense of superiority. Narcissistic women might believe they are superior to others, often asserting their dominance through subtle signs and body language. They operate under the assumption that they are entitled to special treatment due to their perceived superiority. The 11th trait is an inflated sense of social importance. Narcissistic women often crave recognition and validation, and they may go to great lengths to maintain a polished social image. They are deeply concerned with how they are perceived by others and will manipulate situations to appear in the best light. This leads us to the 12th trait, manipulation. Narcissistic women are often skilled manipulators, using charm, guilt, or intimidation to influence others. They can be remarkably adept at twisting situations and words to fit their narrative, leaving others feeling confused and disoriented. Finally, the 13th trait is intense jealousy. Narcissistic women may display a strong sense of envy towards others, particularly those who they perceive as threats to their status or attractiveness. This jealousy can fuel their competitive nature, leading to further manipulation and control. These are all the 13 traits of narcissistic women. Now let's discuss how to deal with them. Dealing with a narcissistic woman requires acknowledging the situation first. This statement is more than just a suggestion, it's a crucial first step. When you're faced with a person exhibiting narcissistic tendencies, it's easy to get swept up in their charm, their grandiosity, or their manipulative tactics. You might find yourself doubting your own experiences or questioning your perception, but it's essential to trust your instincts. Acknowledge the reality of the situation, that you're dealing with a narcissist. This is not about labeling or demonizing the person, but rather understanding the dynamics at play. Once you've acknowledged the situation, it's time to establish boundaries. Now, this might sound simple, but setting boundaries with a narcissistic woman can be a challenging endeavor. Remember, narcissists often struggle to respect others' boundaries. They may see them as threats to their power or control, leading to reactions ranging from passive-aggressive behavior to outright hostility. So, how do you go about setting these boundaries? Start by being clear and assertive. Define what is acceptable behavior and what is not. It's important to communicate these boundaries directly and firmly without engaging in arguments or justifications. But setting boundaries is not just about communicating your limits to the other person, it's also about enforcing them. If a boundary is crossed, there should be consequences. This might mean distancing yourself, limiting contact, or seeking support from friends, family, or professionals. Remember, boundaries are not about controlling the other person's behavior. They're about protecting your own well-being. And sometimes this might mean making tough decisions, like cutting ties with the person, if the situation becomes too toxic or harmful. These are the first two strategies. Let's discuss the rest. The third strategy to deal with a narcissistic woman is seeking support. Now, this can come in various forms. It could be from friends, family, or even professional psychologists. The key is to communicate and share your experiences, providing you with a fresh perspective and emotional relief. Narcissism can be isolating, and it's important to remember that you're not alone in dealing with these issues. However, be cautious when choosing whom to confide in. It's crucial to find individuals who are understanding, empathetic, and won't further the narcissist's agenda. Moving on to the fourth and final strategy. Considering therapy, this isn't just beneficial for the narcissistic woman, it's also incredibly valuable for those around her. Therapy can provide the tools and techniques to handle narcissistic behavior effectively, reducing the potential harm to your mental and emotional well-being. For the narcissistic woman herself, therapy can be a challenging yet necessary step. Narcissists often resist therapy as they don't recognize their behavior as problematic. However, with patience and professional guidance, it is possible for them to gain insight into their actions and begin the process of change. In therapy, you can learn to establish and maintain boundaries, communicate effectively, and protect yourself from manipulation. It's not about changing the narcissistic woman. It's about equipping yourself with the skills to manage the relationship in a healthier, more balanced way. Remember, dealing with a narcissistic woman is not about winning or losing. It's about understanding, setting boundaries, and knowing when to seek help. It's a journey that requires patience, resilience, and self-care. These strategies can help you navigate your relationship with a narcissistic woman. Let's briefly recall what we have discussed today. We've navigated the complex landscape of narcissism, focusing particularly on women who exhibit these traits. We identified a total of 14 traits, each one a potential red flag indicating a narcissistic personality. We started with the lack of empathy, a hallmark of narcissism, where the individual fails to understand or share the feelings of others. We moved on to boundary issues, where personal space and respect for others' rights are often ignored. We then discussed how narcissistic women often play the victim, spinning situations to seem like they are the aggrieved party, even when this is far from the truth. We also highlighted the trait of materialism, where the love of possessions outweighs love for people. This was followed by the refusal to accept boundaries, a trait that often leads to conflict in relationships. Then, we shed light on the enjoyment derived from others' pain, a disturbing trait that is deeply rooted in narcissism. We also touched upon the destructive nature of narcissists in relationships and their tendency to be self-centered, often blaming others for their own failures and shortcomings. Lastly, we discussed the subtle, passive-aggressive behavior that is often a tool of manipulation for narcissistic women. But understanding these traits is only half the battle. We also explored strategies to deal with narcissistic women, starting with acknowledging the situation. We emphasized the importance of setting boundaries, seeking support from trusted individuals, and considering therapy if necessary. Remember, the journey of dealing with a narcissistic individual can be challenging, but with the right tools and mindset, it is manageable. Knowledge is power, and understanding these traits and strategies is the first step towards empowering yourself. Did you find this video helpful? Share your experiences of dealing with a narcissistic woman in the comments below. Also, make sure to watch the next video on your screen.